a very special guest, Jorge Pedro Solís. He is the development manager of TVazteca, one of the largest content TV. It's a Mexican cluster of the media, and it's owned by the Salinas group. Azteca is at the forefront of technology with developments that had allowed it to make its process more agile, be closer to its customers, and reduce costs. Jose Pedro is a bachelor in administrative IT at Nuevo León Autonomous University. He has over 30 years of experience. In the past 19 years, he's been working for TVazteca. He's been leader and responsible for the implementation and support of systems for practically all areas and levels of this business. At present, now, today, he's going to share his experience with Genexus and the experience it means in this digital transformation. An applause for him, please. Good afternoon. Well, yes. Thank you for your kind introduction. I'm going to be telling you about TVazteca. TVazteca is a television company, national-wide in Mexico, one of the two large companies. We provide services to practically 20 million people in Mexico, but we've also got operations in the US. We mainly support Latin chains, and we've got operations in Central America, and part of our contents are sold in other countries in Latin America. Now, I'm not a TV man. I wasn't that mad to become an actor, but I had to do something that was not that glamorous as being an actor, and I'm responsible for developing solutions at TVazteca. This is an important position because I'm in charge of about 85 people, the staff and others that come and go, depending on the projects. I've been working for 19 years there, and before working at TVazteca, I worked for a very important group in Monterrey. Monterrey is north of Mexico, about a couple of hours from the border with the U.S. That's where they want to build the wall. That's where Trump wants to build his wall, very close by. We'll have to work next to the wall or even build it. I don't know. So I've been working on this business for over 32 years. And I think that there are many people who are not even that old. I think the majority, I think we have 4 war veterans and the rest are younger. But, well, I'm here because Gisela and Nicolas invited me to tell you about our experience in TVazteca using Genexus tools. And they told me that it was, a face-to-face thing, but there are so many. They didn't say there were too many faces on that side. Well, luckily they didn't say it was a lecture. They say, well, it's a talk, and And so I had to give a name to this talk, and I called it Challenges in System Development. And what is it I want to talk about? Well, systems are more and more complicated to build. In these few days that we've shared many talks, I've heard many concepts, and I go back to the time when I started programming, and I can compare and see how many times have we talked about user experience. There have been talks about that, and user interface and so on. And I was thinking about how we started that activity. Well, in the 80s, that type of thing was done by the programmer. There were no designers, system designers at least. And we would use very powerful tools to do that. Those were some pieces of paper and a pen. There were 80 columns on that piece of paper and 24 lines. And we would draw what the screen would look like. We wanted the data to fit in. We were ready for the graphic interface, monitors. Why were we using those sheets, 80 by 24? Well, the 4 veterans here in the room would probably recall it. It's because the monitor of the computer could only deploy 80 columns and 24 columns. They were monochromatic. Some of them were white, orange, green, and that was it. That was the graphic interface. At present, there are people who are only working on that, and the first thing that users want is to see whether it's user-friendly. They talk about usability, if it looks nice. The word usability doesn't exist in the dictionary, but anyway, all those elements have to be covered. And what does all that cause? Well, the fact that we have to focus that much on this part of the user interface, user experience, means that developing time frames are longer and they're more costly. I've also heard you talk about security, and I remember that systems used to be, divided into safe and unsafe. Those that had secure and unsecure, those that needed a key to get in or a password, and those that didn't want. Where I work, there is a department, and it's called the Information Security Department. To be able to put a production system, I have to comply with 300 security points. What does that mean? Well, more time and much more complicated systems. And we can talk endlessly about how this has evolved, but one additional point that not that far away in time, mobile devices. I remember the first time I came down here, 2010, Steve Jobs had just announced, it was in January, he had announced that they were going to be iPads. In Mexico, they were released in June, I think. In September, I attended this event, and everyone had, an iPad, and we were all very happy. And, that type of devices change our world once again. Because now we have the chance, as the area of IT creativity, to make systems that are closer to our users. That's excellent, that's wonderful. But it makes systems more complicated, because now we not only have to design things for our desktop, but also for mobile devices with different sizes. And we even have different systems, and users right now are asking us to work in iOS or in Android, and that makes things far more difficult and complicated. And the trouble is not that these systems are more complicated to make. We are very intelligent, we can do so. But the challenge really is that our organizations are asking us to do it in a shorter time and at a lower cost. And that's very complicated. They also asked us that when we implement the system, the system isn't painful, that there are not too many mistakes, because when an app damages the operation, sometimes we have to spend full weekends or months working on trying to stabilize the system. In other words, they want apps not to make that many mistakes. They also asked us that once the system is in production, it can be easily maintained. Business is dynamic. Our system must be dynamic and flexible, and we have to respond very quickly to the needs that come up, and that's part of the requirements. And lastly, we know that investing in systems is very important in terms of costs. And organizations are asking us for systems to have a long, productive life. What does that mean? Well, the technological advance that we have in our devices and information language database and so on and so forth is the first cause of death of our systems. What we have to do is to see how we can do it in such a way that instead of being a cause of death, it's something that gives it a higher value, and that we can take advantage of technological progress for instead of against systems. So that's the challenge. How can we make more complicated systems in an easier way with fewer mistakes and that last longer? About 6 years ago, we were dealing with that, and I came across a friend who was using Genexus. He talked about Genexus to me and said, let me do some research. I read your internet page. It was a multi-platform, that it works in Windows, in web, and mobile devices. It can manage different languages, database, everything we know. And I said, it sounds fine. I like it. Then that it also works in the cloud. That's one of the large clouds, large fields. And the development was very easy, and that just things were just a click away, and it sounded wonderful. So I gave myself this chance of doing some research. I attended this event in 2010. I talked with many people using Genexus. These were people from Canal 13. I didn't meet them here. I went to Buenos Aires. That's a TV chain. We've got 3 chains in TVazteca, and one of them is also called 13. I also met with Bantotal people, and I would like to underscore something that one of the questions that I asked Bantotal, I asked them, how important was it for the banking core to be developed with Genexus? And they say it's fundamental. And I said, why? Well, Bantotal banking core, I know Bantotal people must be around, was developed in the 80s when it was DOS, and they said that they were able to survive and have it as a competitive advantage when they could see the large technological waves, Windows, web, and that made many of their competitors to be driven out of the market. They were able to evolve and take advantage of those advances so that systems could last longer. And that's caught my attention a lot from the Bantotal people. After I attended this event in 2010, I made a pilot test in Mexico. I talked with people from Alfa Soluciones. This is one of the distributors in Mexico, and we put them before a challenge. We said we had a project we wanted to develop in 3 months with 2 people. It was a payroll of the musicians and actors working in TVazteca. And we said, well, if you can do it in less than 50% with one person, 50% of the time with one person, I'll buy it straight away and pay it. They accepted it. If you don't do it in that time, then you've wasted your time with us. They were working in my office, next to my desk. There was a person working in his laptop. He was showing me what they were doing, what he was doing. It was ready in 1 month. We set it up. It worked out. We bought the service back. Well, in payment, I think we did pay you, I think, yes. So they did it in 1 month. We had asked them for a month and a half. In a month, it was ready. What we did later on was to get some training. Now, out of experience, I would like to tell you what I can feel about Genexus training. The learning curve was much shorter. I think that someone in a native language, .NET, Java, needs a year so that you have an adequate level to develop. I don't mean an expert, but sufficiently adequate level. I think that 6 months training with Genexus would be someone who can do some complex things. So the training curve is shorter. Now, what have we done? I'm going to tell you about some projects that we've made, very briefly, because I can't go into details, but I would like to tell you that we've done different things using Genexus. For instance, this is a database where we've got all the information about our talents. That's what we call them. These are our actors, actresses, singers, conductors, and here we have the web part, but we've also got an app. And in this type of database, it's some sort of human resources. And, for artists, so we have lots of photographs and videos, CVs, personal data, the classical information. Then we've got data that is not classical, like the artistic name and the representative's name and agent's name. We've also got physical things, eye color, complexion, the age that person looks like, not the real age, and all those details. are there, and what do we use this database for? Well, we do use it for many things, but one in particular is because the producers of our TV programs, whenever they have to look for talent, would go to this database. Let's suppose that in a soap opera, we need someone, a girl who is blue-eyed with certain physical characteristic. You can do so in the system, in the database, and you would get a number of people with those requirements. Another app is what you call the program grid. This is an app that the audience can download to see the programs in our 3 channels on a daily basis or every week. You can watch some trailers, some photographs, videos, and you can even, put it on your agenda, on your alarm clock, and it would tell you that in so many hours or minutes you will get that program. Another rapid application was administrative app.
De equipos técnicos.
We've got thousands of technical equipment, cameras, lights, reproducers, players, helicopters. So we must keep control over maintenance for that equipment. So we have preventive and corrective maintenance, and this can be connected to the purchase department for repairs and so on. Another system that we use is that we take information from social networks and we detect when someone is complaining about our service. For instance, somewhere somebody is saying that they haven't got a signal. So we receive that information. There are people who are processing it. We can do it, without many people. But there are people who look at that information that, get in touch with those people who are complaining. We detect the problem and we correct it. The other was the manual concept. This one is more automated and it's quite similar. What it does, it is connected to specialized equipment, monitoring the attendance. We've got about 300 antennas in Mexico, all over the country. Some of these antennas have people, others have no staff. But we've got a team monitoring certain parameters in the broadcasting. When when the equipment detects something, they will inform us and they will trigger warnings and so on. And this is critical because this is our distribution way of our projects. I mean, we do it through the national network of antennas. Another app that is very interesting is the intellectual property. It's like a legal system. I don't have the figure here, but the Salinas Group, which is the, TVazteca forms part of a group where there is a furniture store, retail, it's got a bank, it's got telephone, telecom, the Salinas Group has many companies. And this system at a group level controls all the intellectual property of the group. And there are thousands of records of intellectual property. In TV, it could go from a soap opera where every one of the actors that plays, plus the directors and the script writers and adapters and so on and so forth, each one of them has a contract giving away their intellectual rights. And we also buy intellectual rights. We buy products from Fox or Disney, and we must have a control there, because if we lose it, we may lose a brand, or we may lose a series that we are not renewing the contract with Disney and so on. Even when we sell our own contents, we have to have a control about what we sell. For instance, we made a TV program ourselves. We sold it in Italy under an exclusive basis, and then someone comes in and wants to buy it, and they want to buy the same program for Europe. Now the system has to tell me yes, but not to Italy, because you've already sold it to that company and to that person. You cannot sell it again, because if you do, then things will get complicated in a legal process. So this is one of the systems that we are managing in intellectual property. That payroll system that I told you about Alpha Solutions, this is a payroll system managing the salaries of actors, when definitely not there, and the musicians as well. This, as much as equipment fails, well, people also get ill. So we have a medical area where we have all the medical records of our employees and medical appointments and medicine they take, medicine controls. We have 3 physical areas where we've got doctors. And whenever a scene of a soap opera is going to be filmed, we have our own medical staff. Also the purchase system for the Salinas group. I haven't got the figure exactly of how many employees we are, but it's about 50,000 employees. So those people may ask for products and make purchases through the purchase department, and they can detect if that's a product that's already has been negotiated in terms of a price, or whether we have to quote it, and that's connected until you get the material and the connection with SAP for the entry with SAP. The system is a very interesting app, and I think this could be useful for many of you. Not the data, if you're not a TV company, but this was a very small app with another purpose, and we are adapting it right now. Because what happens is that the Salinas group has many fixed assets, many fixed assets. I was discussing this with the director of fixed assets. He said that with the stuff they've got, it would take them about 10 years to count each one of the fixed assets in all the group, traveling around many countries. So that's practically impossible. Now this app, the idea is that an employee has this app in his cell phone, and he can know what assets it's been allocated to. You can't read it, but those are the assets: number of series, imagine the computer, the laptop, car, screen, video player. And the idea is that with this app, you can make your own physical inventory. You can read the code bar of the fixed asset in the app, and the system will tell you, all right, these assets here is in green, is that were already found and everything was fine. And it takes a photograph. It geolocalizes them, because if you have a screen at home, that's not the place where it should be. So if you've got a screen, it should be in your office. So these assets is that they were found and everything was fine. If it's in yellow, well, perhaps there's been a change. Perhaps it's not with that person, but it's with someone else, or it has a physical damage, or the serial number has changed because it didn't coincide, whatever. And those that are in red are, I don't have it. And if you don't have it, then you have to put a comment why you don't have it. It was stolen or something like that. And then once the employee makes his own physical inventory, in the app, he would sign a certificate saying that he's responsible for it. So those famous 10 years that was going to take us to make the physical inventory of all assets, well, can be done in some days. And I think that for all companies with lots of assets and employees, well, this could be an interesting app. Lastly, let me tell you about one of our systems that we feel the proudest of. I could talk endlessly about it, but I've got 5 minutes left only. And this is a system that we built about 4 or 5 years ago. It was to control the production of soap operas. And let me tell you this. I had a dream here. I had a digital dream here. How I wanted the production of soap operas to be done. We had lots of production. Everything was done in, the scripts were in paper. This is the script. people would, all the actors would bring along these papers with the scenes that were going to be recorded. And here they had some documents that said what scene had to be recorded every day, because there was somebody who was planning the scenes. Scenes are not recorded in the way you see them on TV. Scenes are recorded by location. That is, you go to one place and they would record or film scenes from chapter 1, 7, and 29, for instance. And then the editor is the one that cuts them and puts them together. And so we have to be very careful with continuity. These are photographs, because imagine that I'm in this lecture, in this event right now, and I'm dressed in this way, but in a week's time, they're going to record the scene when I came out of the room. And so when they edit the scene, I have to be dressed in the same way. And if there is another scene in a restaurant that is going to be filmed in 2 months' time, I have to go back to the same clothes, because when it's edited, you have to see that there is a continuity. That was done with digital cameras. This was done in paper. This planning where you can see what scenes we still have to film, everything was in paper. Here we can see the location. For instance, the scene says that in the chapter you're going to have a dinner at a restaurant, and this is the system that can give you options of restaurants with certain characteristics. And here you have the planning. Now, I sold this idea to our director, soap opera directors, and she said, "Look, Jorge, I think this sounds like a dream, but there was a case in particular of a system, which is a system called New Magic, which plans soap operas. This is the heart of this process. I mean, how I'm going to film it, because there are many elements and a lot of costs related to it. If you don't plan it well, then you can waste lots of man hours. Behind one of those cameras, there are about 40 people making this filming, shooting. And we had something like 4 or 5 old systems that were covering part of the system. And when I told the soap opera director that I wanted to do this, I said, "I can't believe you." And she said about this movie magic, she said, "Look, Jorge, I've traveled all around the world, and movie magic is the law. It's the system used everywhere for series and soap operas and films. And you say you're going to take it out." And I said, "Well, yes, because it can be integrated in this process that we need." And I don't know how I did this, but I persuaded her, and I said, "All right." And I came out of her office, and she's called Elisa Salinas, and I was very moved, because this was a project that I had hoped for, but I was very nervous because I had not a clue how to do that. I had said many things, and I had a digital dream, but I didn't know how I was going to solve it. And so what I did was I hired 4 people from Genexus, very good people. They are there in Mexico, and they send you greetings, and we started working.
So 3 months later, the movie Magic was in the bin, and we had our production team working with this system. Since then, it's been super successful. We've overdid a lot. And it's been one of the systems of which we are proud, because it has a lot of technology and improvements embedded in the process. So finally, discussing all this a lot with the people from Genexus and seeing what results I have achieved in being faster and having better quality systems, I can tell you more or less what my estimate is. The development times of a project from the analysis to the implementation has been shortened by 50%. If I speak only about the construction stage, it could easily be 70%. Maintenance time has been improved. Also, there are less code, the structure is much better, and if someone did not participate in the development, it's easier for this person to carry out the maintenance. I believe that here we again are saving about 60%. And regard to implementation problems, I'll tell you quickly a story. With regard to intellectual property, the main user of this project was a lawyer who was working for the competitors at the time in the dark side. Now he came to the side of light, and he told us that he had never received a system without errors, but we did with Genexus, and he had never seen this before. And I don't mean errors, for example, you didn't take some criteria or rule into account, but I'm talking about a kind of failures, and it has been much easier to implement with Genexus, therefore. And the shelf life of the system, well, I don't know, because no system has died so far. But I've seen that other application, except the purchase applications, are more or less in Evo 3. And this year we had a very big project. We put everything in the cloud without any problem. The truth is that our development team sent all the systems, those with Nexus and the others, to the cloud. And we didn't have any problem whatsoever. And those that are with Genexus were sent more easily. So I have the confidence that we can continue evolving in this technology, and the people from Genexus will help us incorporate the technology. I remember that in 2010 we brought our iPads, and the application came out in Mexico in June. Here, the event was in September, and the app in which we could see the event, the speakers, the program, etc., had already been developed by Genexus. So I bought my iPad in June in Mexico, and in September, Genexus had already developed the app for the iPad. I'm very happy with the results I've had. I can tell you that Genexus has been a very important pillar in the strategy of facing successfully the challenges of making the systems faster, easier to maintain, free of errors, and systems that last longer. So for the people that belong to the Genexus community, I invite you to continue together, and for those who don't, I invite you to analyze this matter carefully and assess it, because I believe that it's a wonderful option. Thank you very much.